Zoinks! This place gives me the creeps.
The creeps?
Probably loaded with swamp monsters who grab your feet and suck you down into the goo.
The goo?
Oh, don't be silly. There's absolutely nothing to be afraid of. Ah! My foot!
It's the black monster!
No, even worse. There is mud on my new go-go boots. Get it off! Get it off!
The gang's all here, they're on the case, and there's no ghost that they wouldn't face, 'cause they dig it, Scooby-Doo. Yeah, they dig it, Scooby-Doo.
Hey gang, and welcome to a podcast named Scooby-Doo Extra. If you're a regular listener to the show, welcome back. And if you're a new listener, if this is your first time checking the podcast out, what the extra episodes generally are, it's a companion piece to the podcast proper. On a podcast named Scooby-Doo, I generally interview creatives who have worked in some capacity on the IP over the last 50 plus years, basically creating an oral history of the franchise. And with these extra episodes, it's the supplemental material, it's the DVD extras, it's the bonus features. Essentially, any kind of like interviews that are promotional in nature, so they're release specific to movies that are coming out, direct-to-video movies, or in this case, it's a commentary track. Warner Brothers has not been super good at supporting their home video releases with stuff like this. There aren't a lot of bonus features, and there definitely aren't any commentary tracks. And for fans of the show, and fans of animation, and fans of supplemental stuff, like me, I try to put these together whenever I can for all of us to enjoy. Every time I interview somebody on the podcast proper, I always give them the opportunity to come on and do a commentary or two on an episode that they've written, or directed, or storyboarded, or what have you. And today we have returning guest and friend of the show, Charles M. Howell IV, joining me to talk about the pilot episode of the 1988 Saturday morning ABC series, A Pup Named Scooby-Doo. The episode in question was titled A Bicycle Built for Boo. It was written by show creator Tom Ruegger, Jim Ryan, and Charles M. Howell IV, and it premiered on the ABC network on September 10th, 1988. Just before we jump into the commentary, I wanted to give everybody a little bit of a primer. The way this works, Charles and I have a little bit of a conversation beforehand, then we do a countdown, 3, 2, 1, go. So whatever media you happen to be watching on, whether it's a digital copy like on Apple TV, or if you have the DVDs or VHS or whatever you're working with, set up the show, select the episode, pause it while the counter is at 0, and then we do the countdown, say go, and then everybody goes. I hope you all get a kick out of hearing Charles talk about working on this episode and some of his memories of that period. I will let you get to the commentary, and I will see you all on the other side.
Scooby-Dooby-Dooby, a pup named Scooby-Dooby-Doo, Scooby-Doo.
Hey everybody, we are here once again with writer Charles Howell, who is responsible, or at least partly responsible, for the script of A Bicycle Built for Boo, which was the pilot episode of many people's favorite Scooby-Doo, A Pup Named Scooby-Doo. Also the show somewhat responsible for the name of this podcast.
It was, this episode really was a Tom Ruegger episode. I came in and kibitzed a little bit on some sequences, and I'm sure I typed some stuff, but I may have done a draft of the whole thing, but really I'm not sure I did. Really, a pilot is really going to be, a show that the creator or the showrunner is doing. So, yeah.
Right. I think on my rewatch of it tonight, I saw there was like 3 or 4 names, so not sure how that's going to play out, but...
Is that a right credit for this episode?
On this episode, yes. There was you, there was Tom, and I thought there was like at least one other name there. I could be wrong. We'll find out in a minute.
It may well have been. I don't think I was in the room, but I mean, I think Tom likes getting a lot of input, and so you give it to him. But basically, he's got to control the pilot episode, and
oh yeah,
he really is a good interpreter of what's wanted.
It sets the tone, it sets the setting, it sets the characters. Yeah, I mean, the showrunner, the executive producer has to have,
Right. And he's really
or
the
story editor or whatever.
one who's had the in-depth conversations with the network and everything. So, yeah.
All right. Well, as we do here on the podcast named Scooby-Doo Commentaries, grab your DVDs or your digital copies or however you're watching the show. Get them set up to counter position 0000 and put them on pause. Pause the show here. We will wait for you to deal with that and come back. So see you in a second. All right, so I'm assuming everybody has all of their media in the paused position where it needs to be. I'm going to count down from 3, go 3, 2, 1, go, and on go, we will all press play, and we will be watching the Pup Named Scooby-Doo pilot episode, A Bicycle Built for Boo, with writer Charles Howell. Are you ready, Charles?
Yes.
All right. 3, 2, 1, go. All right. A Pup Named Scooby-Doo. So how did you get involved with Pup Named Scooby-Doo? I think we talked about it a little bit when I interviewed you previously, but...
I was on staff at Hanna-Barbera. Tom had this new version of the show. He was very excited about it. We were all very excited about it. He'd been given some leeway to sort of redesign the thing. And I think the network really felt that Scooby was getting stale, as we discussed on Night Louse at the White House. And so we brought in Mitch Schauer, who did just a lot of great new character designs and just new design work generally on the show. I mean, look at the shape of that door. It's just a lot more fun looking. And
did Ewo do the new character models?
Ewo would have supervised, but I think they pretty much let Mitch go. They might have reined him in on a couple of things. Anything like that would have, gone through Ewo's graphing board, and but I mean, look at that thing bounce up and down when it pulls to a stop. That's not something you could have done on Scooby.
No, this is a whole new. This feels very much like Tom's Tiny Toon stuff.
Yeah, I think that's right.
And I think it's a really good blending of the gags and the humor with the Scooby-Doo, whereas, like we talked about on Night Louse, that was very gag-centric, but it wasn't necessarily executed as well as it could have been, whereas this is very much in the spirit of I think, what you guys were shooting for.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Even 13 Ghosts. Even 13 Ghosts kind of fell a little flat in the gag area.
Because that was the same production line, the same directors as the pre Scoobies.
So I did notice at the titles there was another name. It was Jim Ryan.
Oh yeah, he was around. He was an older writer, and I don't know in what way Tom used him. I may not have been in the room at the same time as him.
So what was it like writing for this newer, more comedic, younger version of the characters? Having written for the more mature versions.
Yeah, it was the same. It was faster paced stuff. I think Velma's beats are a little more kid-like. She's sort of, the human computer in the old series, and she's a little more personable here.
It was interesting to see, like, so many of these shows, because when they're sold, you never know how the network, what order they're going to air them in. So a lot of times your pilot episode, your first episode, is just an episode. But this one really does set up Coolsville. It sets up the characters,
right.
Has Shaggy's narration.
That's not always the network's choice. Sometimes they come back in weird order from the Mysterious East. I mean, they're animated in various Asian countries, and we don't, the network doesn't have a lot of control over orders sometimes. So
just whatever completed episode is on hand.
Yeah, sometimes you're rerunning things early in the season because you don't have the next episode yet. You don't want the case, but that's a gag that would not. We would have tried that with their heads coming out of the trees. We might have called for something like that, but it wouldn't have worked like it worked here.
Now, was there a map? Like, did Tom work out the geography of Coolsville?
You'd have to ask him.
Okay.
I was never handed a map.
Because I know on the DVDs, the menu is actually, you go through kind of a map of Coolsville. So I wondered if that might have been in the Bible starting off.
I could not tell you that.
I was never a big fan of A Pup Named Scooby-Doo when it came out because there were so many of those shows at the time that were, let's do the younger versions of the Muppets or whoever. It's something I've kind of revisited because so many people are fans of it, and of course I've named the podcast kind of after it. And I'm finding myself like really enjoying these versions of the characters. Like I really like this Daphne. I really like this Velma.
Yeah. It's, it gives us a chance to have more fun with them, but we basically were writing the same characters, just with a little more youth. I think when they did, different networks, different crews, different writers and whatever, did like the Young Flintstones, and suddenly it was like any other kids in school thing, and who cares, and with some of those. So, I mean, I don't know if anybody... And they wanted modern things on that. And how do you do a bird is inside the computer? I mean, but anyway, so they went very, very different. This stayed with the mysteries. It stayed with the basic dynamics of the characters. It tried to make Fred more fun. They gave him a beat here where he has a wild idea of what the solution is to the thing. And I think that was Tom, obviously. And
do you know if the 50s inspired kind of look and music has to do with the fact that Where Are You came out in 69, and if you track back like 10 years from teenagers to whatever their ages are kind of here, that you'd be putting yourself in the 50s?
You could ask Tom that. I never was given that instruction. I think they just wanted everything more fun. You thought the music sounded 50s inspired?
Yeah, like the sort of the doo-wop style of music, yeah. And even just looking at the outfits of like Daphne and Fred with the rolled up pants, for Fred, and Daphne's got like the skirt and the go-go boots, and
yeah,
kind of like a early 60s, late 50s sort of thing.
Yeah. Well, go-go boots would be late 60s. And I don't know if there was a thought. There's a gag with her go-go boots coming up in this one. And I don't know. And when I saw it this time through, I was like, go-go boots, what era? Go-go boots are very specific, like 1966 to like the 70s. And then, of course, people continued to have them for a while after that. So I don't know if there was a thought about...
Considering our conversation about the show when I was interviewing you previously, I kind of figured there might be a handful of questions that you'd be like, that's a question for Tom.
Oh yeah, no, absolutely. And I'm surprised you haven't. Have you tried to get him on this?
I haven't contacted him directly, but it's on the list. He's on the list.
Oh, good.
I know that he was being approached a lot about 13 Ghosts of Scooby-Doo for a while, and he seemed a little bit aggravated by it. I think it might have been sort of the tone of the questions that he was being asked, and I think he was much more interested in talking about sort of the Warner Brothers stuff that he was doing. But I've had several people tell me, oh, Tom would love to talk about his time. So
yeah, I don't know what he was asked about Vincent Van Gogh, but again, the actors are often what the fans are most interested in. And if he was getting a lot of questions like, what was it like to work with Vincent Price? And how did you get Vincent Price? And did he have a lot to do with his lines? And so
I think there was a lot of like, what happened to the 13th Ghost?
Yeah, there was some of that. And that was just, the show was canceled. I think probably before the end of the season. So there's usually 13 episodes in
Yeah.
an opening season.
This is also the last television series to feature Don Messick as Scooby, which is kind of cool.
Yeah, yeah. There were 2 seasons of this, right?
Yeah, I think it's 2 or 3, yeah.
Yeah, he had that stroke just as we were starting on.
Oh, really?
Yeah, Tiny Toons, or right around that time, he had a stroke. Left him unable to speak clearly to do this kind of stuff.
So we talked about the gags in Night Louse at the White House and how there was some limited success there. How are you feeling about the gags on this show?
Much better. Much better. I think everything has just more energy, and I think maybe Mitch even directed some of these, timed them or something. It was much zippier. And you mentioned the style of everything, the characters, the backgrounds, everything is designed for broader movement, broader gags. That thing right there where Scoob points and he gets all the eyeballs. You get a frame where they're like, it's an eyeball smear.
Yeah.
Done that on the regular Scooby series.
Or even just watching Velma's feet doing that.
Yeah.
Very quick motion. I'm not even sure what to call it.
God, if we had called for something like this whole routine with Scooby, it would have been timed like they were, in oatmeal. I mean,
Yeah, we talked about, on the last commentary, we talked about the way Be Cool Scooby-Doo was also very comedy-centric, and those were also models that were designed to handle the broader comedy.
yeah.
Because the original 69 models just wouldn't be able to bear it.
No, again, they were designed to sell the shows. The network's more concerned with, with teenagers, whether the characters would be, aspirational for young kids, and, and stuff like that, which...
Did you know that this show is pretty much the only show that EWO kind of officially approved of since the 69 version?
Really? I didn't know that.
Yeah, he kind of thought that all the Scoobies in between were kind of derivative and just didn't really hit sort of the highs of that original 69 version. And when this one came around, he saw a lot of like youth and energy and really interesting kind of ideas. And he was like, this one has my stamp of approval.
Oh, yeah. You mean it was the first Scooby that he had, that he approved of since 69. So it was the first show he had approved of since 69. He certainly worked on a lot of other shows.
Yeah, it was the first Scooby. Yeah. He thought this one got the spirit.
Yeah.
Far more than the other ones did.
Oh, yeah.
I think I'd agree.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. And that was what Tom and Mitch and everybody was trying for.
This is the first time I really feel, I mean, you can see Tom in 13 Ghosts. You can see Tom in the earlier shows, but like, this is the one, knowing what I know from what he does later, this is the one where I can really see Tom. Like, this is.
Yeah, oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
So this is Shirley MacLaine. Name is a takeoff on Shirley MacLaine, who had just had a book out called Out on a Limb, I guess, about,
All of her past lives.
Past lives and all that kind of stuff. And so Tom came up with this character. She's obviously not done as a caricature of Shirley MacLaine. Sometimes there had been some incidents where stars sued over that kind of thing. So they wanted to keep her as far away as possible. I have no idea who's doing that voice on her.
I wondered that myself. And the way the credits are set up, it just lists everybody who's done a voice on the show.
3 full cards of voice credits.
I do find it interesting that they list Shaggy and Scooby on their own individual card.
They were the stars of the show coming back.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There's long been a kind of discussion about splitting up the gang, not just sort of in the show, but in general, like for a series.
Yeah.
And the importance, because a lot of people, even in the latest film Scoob, I think there was discussion like, well, what do we do with these characters? Because they're not Shaggy and Scooby and they're kind of boring.
Yeah.
But you need those high comedy characters, and you also need those drier characters or those straighter characters.
Do you really?
You don't think so?
Did you need Abbott and Costello and 3 other people? No, Abbott and Costello fought Frankenstein or whatever, and they were crazy and loony. But you didn't need other people hanging around. The Three Stooges, the straight characters were the bad guys, and and that's about it.
But would Lou be as funny without Bud?
Oh no, you need a straight man, but you need the interaction. But and these are 2 comedy characters that interact with each other. But what you don't need is a bunch of other straight characters hanging around with them. I mean, Bud there's the angry, you stop that guy. He's a guy who gets frustrated. So he's got a part in the comedy act. Freddie and Daphne don't really. And they're added because, you get group comedies. As soon as the networks become involved, they don't want to commit to a star character. They think there won't be enough to
Just saw the sign that said standard cartoon gig.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, that's Tom allowing that, yeah.
I like the fire animation here.
Yeah.
Even the backgrounds really reflect, because they're so off the wall, and it sets the tone. Like, you have these characters within this sort of crazy environment, so you don't expect, they're not like pushing against reality so much.
No. Yeah, that's Mitch. On the earlier shows, they remove characters, they do whatever, but you're still working with those model sheets. The models on them were never refreshed. So you kind of had to do a world that those characters would fit into. And here the whole thing was sort of organically reimagined by Tom and Mitch. And so you're broader to start out with.
Actually, now that I think about it, Shaggy actually refers to his bike as a 1959 something classic.
He does. I don't know what, does he have like a hot rod, or is it an old bike that he's, the hand-me-down that he's fixed up or something? And putting the romps back in. That was another thing. That was another big thing Tom wanted to do. The comedy romps where they're chasing around to music.
I love Velma's Peanuts dancing.
Yeah. They're all kind of doing that. Oh, yeah, there she is. Yeah, she's that one character in Peanuts. Yeah.
So this was the only episode that you had a hand in, right?
Yeah, I was working on other shows, and I think this was between seasons probably, or I was doing something else. And
were you brought in primarily because of your long-standing relationship with Tom?
Yeah. And he liked what I did with comedy. I'm just trying to do more of that here. And as I mentioned, that Shirley MacLaine character, I don't know if we talked about this during the recording of this, was supposed to have a lot more to do. It's a pilot, and you overwrite pilots. And Tom wanted a big seance scene with Shirley MacLaine and the other characters, and Shaggy and Scooby treating the tarot cards as like poker cards. And, we wrote a whole thing. I'll trade you 2 flaming skulls for one, Grim Reaper. We're okay. And that was all cut because, on a pilot, you want to squeeze everything in that you've ever thought of doing with the show. and then you come down to reality, and you've got 24 minutes. And so you end up cutting most of that other stuff that doesn't move the story along. So you really don't have any gags on Sugar McClune now, except your name and the character design. And but I remember that was some of the stuff that Tom wanted me to come in and help with.
Kind of a long-standing tradition in Scooby-Doo to have a character just sort of wander in and wander off and then come back at the end of the episode and be a significant character.
Yeah, usually there's some way of planting why they're there. She just literally comes out of the bushes. But I guess she's been keeping the house under surveillance. She got her camera there and everything.
And she is at the Daily Babbler.
Yeah. What the hell this voice is there?
I'll do some digging. So you were brought in primarily to do like a punch-up?
No, it was during the writing process.
Okay.
It was during the writing process. He would bring people in and out as he thought they would be useful, and he'd stay there for some time. Jim Ryan probably helped work out the specifics of the story, you know, the plot and the payoff and everything. Oh. I remember John Kricfalusi was there for a while working on development for a new show, and he did that John Kricfalusi style of his that had not been done anywhere. It was based on Clampett and everything, but done it. And he told me that he would take Ewo would take John's drawings and put them down and put a piece of tracing paper over them and start making them normal and over the top of whatever John's done. And Ewo said to John at one point, "John, when are you going to stop making this cheap poster art and design some animation art?" And I tell that story because obviously his style, you know, became the style of half the shows in the industry, not just Ren and Stimpy. But this was Mitch trying to fun everything up, and it worked. It really worked. Mitch and Tom. Mitch with the designs mostly, but Tom with the concept and the writing.
I never brought it up during the Night Louse commentary, but you know, again, we were talking about the gags, and knowing that like Tex Avery was at the studio for a while and doing Quickie Koala, and you know, watching A Pup Named Scooby-Doo. This has more of like the Tex Avery kind of look with the dropping jaws and the crazy.
Yeah, I don't think he was still there when this was done.
Oh no, not this one. No.
But yeah, absolutely. Because again, it's the Warner Brothers stuff.
It's just funny that he was actually kind of present at the studio at a time when they were not quite hitting the gags.
He was working on something else. You know, Quickie Koala did kind of hit the gags, at least in development. Was that ever made? I don't think I've ever seen an episode.
It's out there. I don't remember what it's like. I know I've seen some.
Yeah.
But I've kind of been wanting to hunt it down.
Yeah. I interviewed him for Emmy Magazine.
Nice.
Yeah. And crotchety old guy. And all the other people kept dying. All the other directors kept dying. And Fred said, I don't die. I'm a carrier. And I don't get heart attacks. I'm a carrier. I guess McKimson died around then. Chuck Jones outlasted Tex.
Yeah.
But, yeah, he was a crotchety old guy. He said, you couldn't do Bugs Bunny today. They'd say, what do you mean a talking rabbit? Why does he talk? And, what, you know, someone following around with a pooper scooper? What do you mean a talking rabbit? That's what the network would say. They don't know comedy, and they, you know, don't want it. So he was frustrated by, I mean, he couldn't sell what he had been doing when he was at Warner's.
Yeah. I wanted to ask one last question about this pup episode.
Yeah.
I seem to recall reading somewhere that Tom had begged Bill Hanna to direct the pilot episode of A Pup Named Scooby-Doo, and Bill said, okay, I'll give you 2 weeks. Do you know if that's...
I don't know that
You
story.
don't know? Okay, another question for Tom.
Yeah, I don't think Ray Patterson did it. And I think in the old partnership, back at like Tom and Jerry and stuff, I thought Bill was the timing director.
He was. Bill did all the timing. Yeah.
Yeah. And I don't know what
Joe was the art guy and Bill was the timing.
Joe was the art guy and kind of the sales guy, and all of that stuff. Yeah.
But Bill had kind of retired at that point as far as like the directing. Like he was still at the studio.
Yeah, no, they were both.
I heard.
They were both in kind of management positions. I mean, you'd have story meetings with Joe, and he'd want, you'd talk through something before he went off and wrote on the projects that he was more directly involved with, not on this and stuff. I think I did a Jetsons TV movie, and that story was worked out with Joe. He was great to talk to. I don't know about him directing, though. I don't think he directed on that.
Or maybe he just timed it. I don't know.
Well, that's with sheets. I mean, that's what they call directing.
Yeah, true.
So I don't know that he did that on this. It'd be interesting to hear from Tom. I
can't remember where I read it. Otherwise, I'd like hunt it down. So I guess I'll have to find Tom. I'll have to ask Tom.
Yeah, he never mentioned it at the time. So to me, but yeah.
Fair enough.
Yeah.
Do you have any last thoughts about the episode or the franchise? Or
no, not really.
All right.
Anything you want to ask, I'm happy to do, but I don't have any last final wisdom.
I can't think of anything off the top of my head that we haven't already kind of skimmed over. So that was the exclusive podcast named Scooby-Doo Commentary with writer Charles Howell. Charles, thanks so much for joining me and taking the time out of this busy pandemic.
Yeah. I didn't get to wax my floors again.
I saw you got some mail earlier, and
Good mail.
you haven't gotten up to get it yet. So,
what urgent thing is going to be in that? Yeah.
Great to have you back on the show. I'm sure everybody's going to love hearing the stories, and that's all I got. Thanks again. We'll talk to you another time.
Okay.
Scooby-Dooby-Dooby, a pup named Scooby-Doo, Scooby-Doo.
And there you have it. That concludes my conversation and the isolated commentary track with co-writer of A Pup Named Scooby-Doo's pilot episode, A Bicycle Built for Boo, Charles M. Howell IV. I hope you enjoyed listening to Charles's remembrances, and I do want to apologize a little bit for the sound quality of this episode. I hope it wasn't too distracting. If you want to check out more commentaries, just scroll down through the back catalog of the show. There's a number of commentaries with John Colton Berry on Be Cool Scooby-Doo episodes, Victor Cook on Mystery Incorporated episodes. There's the previous episode that Charles Howell did for Night Louse at the White House. And of course, our very first commentary, which featured Be Cool Scooby-Doo writer Tom Conkle. If you want to keep up to date with goings on with the podcast, check me out on all the social media. It's a podcast named Scooby-Doo on Facebook and Instagram, at Scooby-Doocast on Twitter. I usually post updates and musings and share any interesting Scooby-Doo and Hanna-Barbera related stuff that I run across. As always, I'd love it if you liked, shared, followed, subscribed on all the platforms that you're currently using. If you're checking the show out on Apple Podcasts, rating and reviewing the show is a big help, helps get the show into the eyes and ears of people who may be interested in this content. And I'd also love to hear what any and all of you have to say about this episode, the commentaries in general, any requests for commentaries, or if you just want to say, hey, interact, hit me up on Twitter, on Facebook. If you're checking the show out on YouTube, there's the comments on YouTube, Instagram, wherever there's a comment wall, wherever you have the ability to leave some thoughts, feel free to do so, and I will try and respond in a timely manner. And with that, I will be bringing this episode of a podcast named Scooby-Doo Extra to a close. I have an interview that I'm working on at the moment. We haven't confirmed a date, so I don't want to announce who it is yet. But as I said, I am doing one episode a month. Basically, the show will be hitting you at the end of every month. So look forward to that. And like I said, keep tabs on the social media. That's where you're going to find out all the details. Thank you so much for supporting the show. Thank you so much for downloading and listening. Spread the word, tell your family and friends, share the Scooby love. I hope everybody's staying safe, staying healthy, and I hope to see you next time on a podcast named Scooby-Doo.
Zoinks! Like what's wrong, Scoob? You look like you've seen a ghost.
Exactly.